Hi everyone, welcome to Think IAS and I am Amarpreet Kaur. Today we will be talking about very important topic for UPSC, that is fundamental rights. As we all know that this topic is a broad topic, so we will be covering it in multiple videos. This is the first part, and in the coming videos we will be talking about each of the fundamental right in a descriptive manner. So let's get started. If you are liking the content, you can like, comment and share, and you can subscribe to Think IAS. Now let's see what is fundamental rights. They are there under the Part 3 of Constitution and they cover Article 12 to 35. The fundamental rights are inspired from the USA Constitution, which contain Bill of Rights. Part 3 of Indian Constitution is also known as Magna Carta of India because in 1215, England King he provided first time the rights to barren people through Magna Carta, and after that, any country who is providing some rights to their people for the first time, they call it as Magna Carta. Now let's see what is the aim of fundamental rights. So fundamental rights are there to promote ideal of political democracy. They are protecting country people from authoritative and despotic rule. It is protecting liberty and freedom of people against the invasion by the state. It acts as limitation on the tyranny of executive and arbitrary laws of legislature. The overall aim of this fundamental right is to establish a government of law and not of men. But why we call fundamental rights fundamental? First thing is it is guaranteed by the fundamental law of land and it is protected by the fundamental law of land, that is the constitution. That's why we call it as fundamental. Secondly, it is very essential for each person living in the country to get overall all round development in intellectual, moral, spiritual, physical. So these rights are providing all these development and hence it is fundamental. And third and most essential thing is that they are providing healthy functioning democracy, and hence it is also known as cornerstone for Indian democracy. Now we have to see the difference between fundamental rights and other legal rights. We know that fundamental rights are very important because they are guaranteed by the constitution itself and it cannot be changed easily. We have to amend the constitution to change the fundamental rights, and the person whose fundamental rights are getting violated, they can approach to Supreme Court directly. But if I talk about other legal rights, they are given by the law of parliament, and hence, if we need to change, sometimes we can change them very easily by the process of lawmaking. And if anyone's other legal rights are getting violated, they have to fill a ordinary suit or petition under the subordinate court or high court, but they cannot approach Supreme Court directly. We have to see the nature of fundamental rights. So the rights are available for everyone, but few rights are there only for the citizens, like Article 15, 16, 19, 29, and 30. Secondly, fundamental rights, they are protecting and safeguarding people against the state's action and not against the private individual, except for the three rights, that is abolition of untouchability, right to life, and right against exploitation. Next thing we need to keep in mind is that fundamental rights are not absolute. That means they are not there for every time. Sometimes we can restrict them on the basis of reasons, like a pandemic is going on or maybe some emergency is going on. Then we have the right, the government have the right to restrict some of the fundamental rights. But only one article 17, which is right against untouchability, is need to be followed, and it is one of the only absolute right we have. Fundamental rights are divided in two groups, negative and positive nature. Negative are the rights which place limitation on authority of the state, whereas positive in nature are the rights which confer certain privileges on the persons. Now we are talking about state, but we need to know what is state. So the definition is given in Article 12, which says legislative and executive organ of union government, legislative and executive organ of state government, any local authority, statutory or non-statutory authority. All these come under the state, and hence any law made by them should be a law which should not violate the fundamental rights. Now we have to see what is Article 13, but before that we have to learn that the fundamental rights came in operation when the constitution came in operation, and that is 26 January 1950. Before that, if there is any law we were following, it is known as pre-constitutional law. So Article 13 clause 1 is saying All those pre-constitutional laws which are not consistent with fundamental rights or which are not respecting fundamental right should be void in nature, and other laws can be valid. To check if a law is void or valid, we have two doctrines. One is known as doctrine of severability. It means to separate. So we have to filter all the pre-constitutional laws from the filter of fundamental rights, and those laws which can be filtered, they are known as non-faulty laws or they are valid laws, whereas the laws which are conflicting with the fundamental rights, they will get separated. Now let's understand this again. If this is a pre-constitutional law, maybe this part is not conflicting with the fundamental rights, so this is a normal law. But this part, which is conflicting with the fundamental right, when we keep this law under the doctrine of severability, we can say that all the yellow part, which was not conflicting, is the remaining valid law, but the part which was conflicting is invalid part of law, and it is now in operative law because of the fundamental rights. Now, what we can do for these? So we can use the second thing, that is doctrine of eclipse. It says it means to hide or to shadow something. So the laws which are separated by a doctrine of severability, let's say this one, they will be shadowed by or fundamental laws, or we can say fundamental law will prevail over them, and their existence is not lost. It's just they are right now inoperative, and if in any case the fundamental rights get amended and these laws are no more in these laws are no more conflicting with the fundamental rights, then they can be active again. Now let's see what is Article 13, Clause 2 is saying. It says, state if a state shall not make a law that takes or away or abridges one or more fundamental rights, if at all such law has been passed by the parliament, it shall be held unconstitutional and void to the extent of inconsistency. That means any post constitutional law cannot be there which is conflicting with fundamental rights. Now let's see what is Article 13, Clause 3 says. It is defining the definition of law. What is law? Like we are talking about that this law should be there, this law should not be there. So what is law? It is defining. But there are two exceptions under this Article 13, Clause 3, which says that any administrative order which is in the nature of guidelines or some instructions, they cannot come under Article 13, Clause 3. That means they cannot be known as a law. Similarly, any personal law can also cannot come under the Article 13, Clause 3. Now we have a question like, if we do some amendment in the constitution, will we amount that to a law or not? Or the simple question I would say is, who is supreme, judiciary or parliament? To solve this, we have a series of events. Let's see them. So after this 13 clause 2, the parliament it amended the constitution for the first time, and in the first time the constitution got some amendments in fundamental rights like article clause 15, 15 clause 4, article 19 clause 6 were added, and these were uh, conflicting with other fundamental rights. So on the grounds of article 13 clause 2, first amendment was challenged in Supreme Court in Shankari Prasad case versus Union of India, case 1951. And the ruling came out that in the favor of Parliament, Supreme Court said that the Parliament has two type of laws or legislative powers. One is legislative power, that is ordinary. That means it can create any ordinary law. Second is the constitutional legislative power under Article 368. That means it can amend the constitution. So, any act of parliament, if they are making any law under normal ordinary law making process, and if it is violating the fundamental right, then that law should be null and void because it is coming under Article 13 clause 2. However, if a parliament is uses constitutional legislative power and under Article 368 it is amending the constitution instead of making a new law, then this amendment of any part of the constitution, it it, uh, it does not affect the Article 13 clause 2, and parliament can do so. So in Shankari Prasad, the court says that meaning of law under Article 13 clause 3 does not include a constitutional amendment, hence amendment cannot be challenged under Article 13. However, in Gorakhnath versus State of Punjab case 1967, the Supreme Court overruled its earlier decision and said that Article 368 contain only the procedure of the procedure to amend the constitution, and it does not confirm the power to the parliament, and hence parliament cannot amend the constitution, and the judicial review is the supreme thing. So amendment can be challenged under the Article 13. After all these things, Parliament came with the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1971, where they changes the very title of this article 368, which now read as the power to amend the constitution and the procedure to do so. So under Article 20, under this 24th Constitutional Amendment Act, Parliament inserted Article 13, Clause 4 in the Constitution, which says that any amendment under Article 368 cannot challenge under the Article 13. So all this case was sorted out after the Keshavananda Bharati case, in which Supreme Court said that amendment cannot be challenged under Article 13. Now let's see what is Article 13, Clause 4. It says any of the amendment made under Article 368 of Indian Constitution would not be challenged under Article 13, even if that is violating the fundamental right. Still, that law will amendment is not known as void or null. I hope you like the video. I hope you like the content. If you're liking it, please do share, please like, share, and comment. You can subscribe to Think IAS. We'll be coming with the new chapter or new part of this fundamental rights, in which we'll be explaining all the details of other fundamental rights in a descriptive manner. Till then, bye bye. Take care.